right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, Josh, thanks very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is where we talk to you every single night of the week, 10:35 until 11 on KDKA Plus and on most nights 93.7 The Fan, which is where we find Paul Alexander tonight. Paul, welcome aboard here, and that was a nice game for the Pirates. They needed one of those kinds of games, 11-1, rebounding from last night's tough 3-2 loss. But they're still on the outside looking in. But this is one of those games that I think you can maybe, hopefully, use as a springboard. They have the Reds this weekend. If they can put together a little bit of a streak, which has not happened this season, they can jump right back into the wild card chase, jumping over some of the teams in the process.
Well, Bob, when they're good, they're really good. This offense, again, without O'Neal Cruz and, Connor Griffin, who, by the way, had a pretty good night in Altoona tonight. I think he'll be back sooner rather than later. When you have 9 hits with runners in scoring position and you put up 11 runs, you look like a freaking dynasty. I mean, these guys looked unbelievable tonight.
They got some significant games tomorrow and then 3 against the Cincinnati Reds. I don't know if he should have gone those 3 innings. He got a save out of this, but, in an 11-1 game, I might have tried to conserve his pitches.
It's very curious how they're using him right now. It's as if they want him to be ready as a starter. If someone falters, if something happens in terms of an injury, they want him to be more of a starter. His move to the bullpen seems to be very temporary if they're going to use him every 4 days, every 5 days. It seems like they have him more on a starter's rotation than as a reliever. So, yeah, I want to see him in high leverage situations. Here's a guy that could be a wipeout closer, like a John Smoltz or one of those guys that went from starter to closer could be, but they don't seem to want to use him in that way. I don't know. I don't understand how they're using him right now. This game was, I know leads haven't been safe with the Pirates so far this year. It was just the other night they were ahead 8-1 in the 7th inning, and all of a sudden it was 8-6. I get that, but at the same time, this guy could be a high leverage closer.
No question about that, and maybe he'll end up in that role one day. Meanwhile, a guy who's going to be a closer in a different sort of way, and that would be Connor Griffin, because he can close out games with a lot of different tools he has. He made his first rehab start tonight in Altoona.
But there's another guy I'm getting excited about. He looks pretty good at the plate. He's a decent catcher, but if he provides the offense that he provided tonight, I think the Pirates have maybe found their catcher.
Yeah, most important hit of the night. That got him on the board, and they start rolling after that. And Henry Davis just has not taken advantage of the opportunities he has had. We'll talk more about that. We'll also get into some other stuff, including the NBA draft, which saw a local kid get selected tonight. The NHL draft is coming up, and there are a lot of people who believe the Penguins might be busy before that draft or during that draft in terms of a trade. We'll get into all that and more. We want your phone calls at 412-575-2600. That's the number to call as we broadcast live here tonight on KDKA Plus. Give us a call next. This is our Xfinity tweet of the night by Pirate broadcaster Joe Block, the highest career OPS with the Pirates all time. Very impressive list from Kiner to Wayner to Stargell, Vaughn, Wagner, Parker, McCutchen, Clemente, and there you see Brian Reynolds, who tonight extended his hitting streak to 13 games. He's been on base now 29 straight games, Paul. That's an awful lot, for a guy who's been inconsistent at times in his career. When he's hot, he's one of the best in the game, but when he goes cold, sometimes you don't see him get a significant hit in a while. But he's put it together on a consistent basis. He's been one of the reasons why they are much better, I think, in runs scored this year. When you add good offense around him, I think it makes everyone better.
Yeah, he's certainly a great player in June. I don't think there's any question about that. June has always been his best month. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was back in 2006, Jason Bay was on base, or safely on base, 29 straight times. So he ties Jason Bay. I think that was his Rookie of the Year season in 2006.
Yeah, pretty impressive stuff, and hopefully he keeps that going because it's been both sides of the plate as well. All right, this coming weekend at the KeyBank Arena in Buffalo is going to be the NHL draft. Now, the Penguins have first round pick, 22nd overall. They have 2 second-round picks. Kyle Dubas has stockpiled a lot of picks, but at some point you're going to use those to make a deal. He has a lot of money to spend. It doesn't look like there are many great free agents out there in areas he needs. Would you suspect that maybe he's going to go, as they say, big game hunting this weekend?
You know, it's going to be very interesting, and it's very difficult in the NHL because you can't really trade picks for players. That doesn't work that way in the NHL like it does in the NFL or in any other sport. So it's going to be interesting, and the problem with the NHL draft is unless you have like one of those generational talents like a Sidney Crosby, a Mario Lemieux, a Connor McDavid, you don't really know much about these guys when they're 18 and 19 years old. So it's a wait and see when it comes to the NHL draft for me. So I don't really know what's out there. They have several needs. They have some good young talent, but I would like to see them make a bit of a splash. If they can go get someone in free agency, they have some needs to fill, and I think there's an opportunity with Sid with maybe 3 or 4 more really good years left to maybe make a little bit of a run, a deep run in the postseason. That would be great to see.
There are some names out there. Jason Robertson is not having what he wants in contract status-wise with Dallas. He's a 26-year-old 40-goal scorer. You'd have to pay a lot to get him, but the Penguins do have some, as I say, some prospects, also picks, and they could throw in maybe a player from this roster. Whatever the case, it's going to be interesting this week in Buffalo. 412-575-2600 is the number to call. One other note here: Malik Thomas finally gets drafted. He was supposed to be a first-round pick out of Lincoln Park here in the Pittsburgh area. He goes on to college. He transfers to John Calipari's team in Arkansas, where he played with Darius Acuff, and Acuff was drafted last night, 7th overall by Sacramento, but he didn't get his name called, did Thomas, until tonight. He finally did. He is going to be a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And there have been some great players that came out of this area. T.J. McConnell is one of those at the time you didn't think so. Boy, he turned into something pretty special. DeJuan Blair at the time when he got in there, and there have been so many others. But this kid has a chance to be a very good player, I would think. Cam Johnson comes to mind as well, Paul.
Yeah, there's been some great guys, and the one thing now with NIL, the way it is, he might make more at Arkansas if he would have stayed. He might regret the decision to come into the the NBA draft, because he could have probably made more at Arkansas next year than he's going to make in the NBA in Cleveland. Yeah,
but if you do well, and we saw that today with some big names actually he wasn't a big name with the Los Angeles Lakers, a guy who was undrafted. And you never thought he was going to be this kind of player. Turns out to get a 4-year, $185 million deal. And, you can do it if you get a shot. Now, I agree with you. I think that if Thomas had stayed at Arkansas, he probably would have been one of the top NIL guys in college basketball. But he made this jump, and I would have said if he didn't get drafted today, he might have forced his issue to go back and may have challenged the system, may have gotten some litigation going on. The way things are going in college sports right now, I don't know what to expect next.
Well, no one does. It's the Wild West. I mean, they're going to try and control it as best they can. Now, at least in college football, you have 5 years to compete. That's it. You can't be 26, 27, 28 years old and play in college football anymore. So at least they're trying to get things a little bit under control. But how many times can you transfer? That should be limited.
That should be changed
There's so many things. Yeah. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. But the NCAA doesn't really care much about college football because the college, presidents cut them out of the whole money situation. They don't get a dime from college football anymore, so they don't really care what happens with football. A lot of people don't understand that. They still control basketball because they get all the money. The NCAA gets all the money for the NCAA college basketball tournament. Then they give the money out. They give the little checks out to the schools. But the NCAA football system, they don't even include the NCAA in any of their TV money.
You see our
so I think that's a bit of a mess.
KDKA.com Connect poll of the night. Who has been the Pirates' best starter pitcher so far this season? Paul Skeens or Braxton Ashcraft? It's brought to you by Penn West University. My choice would go Braxton Ashcraft. I think he's been consistent. I understand the expectations for Skeens are much higher. Skeens has been a very good pitcher. He's not been the same version of what we expect, and that's the product of being so good and winning Rookie of the Year and then Cy Young. But would you agree? Do you think Ashcraft has been their best pitcher so far?
Because of his efficiency, his ability to get deep in games. He pitched 7 full innings on 80 pitches already this year. Paul Skeens can learn a little bit from Braxton right now. I mean, that's kind of difficult to say. Rookie of the Year, Cy Young Award winner. No, Braxton, I think, is the most efficient and probably the most effective starting pitcher so far this year. Yeah, I think that's above and beyond.
Skeens, I don't know if he's trying to, you get the feeling he's trying too many things, or he goes into games, he has, 6 pitches he can use, but it seems like they game plan into a game and say, okay, we're going to rely on the fastball and change up this game. We're going to do next game the splinker and the slider more. Whatever the case may be, he seems like he's not using all of his pitches the way we saw him do it last year, I think.
And Bob, one of the real concerns for me is he's not thrown one pitch in triple digits. And, you know, think about second and third. You have 2 strikes on a guy. You know, last year, the year before, he's going to dial up 101 and just blow it right by that guy to get the strikeout. Granted, he is still a great pitcher, one of a generational talent. I'm not going to take anything away from Paul Skeens, but when you're 2 miles per hour less in terms of velo, I'm a little concerned.
We got a couple of tweets in. Jace Collins says Tyler Callahan is quietly turning into a good trade for Ben Cherington, considering he gave up next to nothing to get him. Callahan's been pretty good. I mean, he's come up with some tough situations on the road both nights in Colorado, and he did not come through when they had opportunities to win that game. And then we have another one here from George Lochner, who says, I would go after a starter at the deadline. I'm not sold on Jarrett or Bubba Chandler yet. Another veteran would help. Well, Chandler's got to be, you know, he's got to be what he was the last game, which is 6 good innings. He's got to do that every time he goes out there. He'll get a chance tomorrow afternoon against this good hitting Seattle team. But at the deadline, I don't know if I'm going to prioritize starter. If I can get one, fine, but mostly I would be looking at relief help because that bullpen has been a mess.
Yeah, I mean, they've been so unreliable. What you really want is when you get to the 6th, 7th inning with a lead, I mean, back in the day, even some of these Pirate teams that weren't very good, if they had a lead late in the game, you could count on it. You could count on that game being a victory. Right now, the Pirates have blown so many saves. They've been so inconsistent. And I think what's so frustrating for Don Kelly is you have a guy that's had maybe 10, 12, 13 scoreless innings. You put him in a high-leverage situation, all of a sudden he gets lit up. He just doesn't know what he's going to get day in and day out with his relievers, and you need some consistency and dependability. That's what you need from your bullpen, and that's not there right now. I would love them to get a couple bullpen arms before the deadline's over. And
internally, they need Santana to get back to where he was last year. He has been terrible, and he hasn't been in a high-leverage situation in quite some time. I wonder if they're going to start giving him those because they need him just as they need Ozuna's bat. You know, at some point, they have to do these things or else it's going to be very difficult for them to get back into this thing, especially with this division now, which is a 10-game deficit to Milwaukee. We got to take a break here. Paul, come back with more. 412-575-2600. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. All right, welcome back. Bob Pompeani, Paul Alexander with you tonight at 412-575-2600. Chuck in Uniontown, one of our favorites, is on the line right now. Hey, Chuck.
Good evening, Bob and Paul, thank you. Yes, I was thinking the same thing. Carmen Mlodzinski should be the ultimate closer. The 9th inning guy. He's pitched the best of all the relief pitchers when you come right down to it. And I really think that the games like tonight, they're not using Mlodzinski the best way that they could. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no reason for him to pitch 3 innings when they're leading by 10 runs. That's ridiculous. They need to make him the ultimate closer for 1 or 2 innings, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with that, Chuck. Or, if, you know, and Paul, your point is well taken from earlier where you said they may be just making sure those pitches are up to keep him in starting form in case they need him. But in the meantime, very important games are going by. And when you use him like tonight when it's 5-1 when he came in, it eventually gets to 11-1, 39 pitches I think it was for him. I mean, to me, I'd like to get more usage out of him in the bullpen, especially if at this point we don't have any room in that starting rotation for him.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why there's so many days between appearances, why in a high-leverage situation they don't go to him. You know, a 1 or 2 run game in the 8th inning, something like that, even in the 7th inning. I think he's their best bet right now in that bullpen. No one's been consistent. No one's been dependable. If that's going to be his role, let it be his role. I don't understand what they're doing with him right now.
Yeah, and I don't know if Jones is going to make his next start. By the fact that Mlodzinski was in there tonight, I expect that he will. He got that shot off his elbow, and he's lucky he didn't get anything more serious. But do you think he'll be, you know, in his next starting role, or are they going to maybe give him a turn off just because of the, you know, they had an off day on Monday? I'd be cautious with him, especially given what he went through with the Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, I think, you know, he played catch the very next day after the hit. I guess it was a couple inches away from shattering his elbow, so he really dodged a bullet there. But I think he'll be good to go in his next start. Again, that's a contusion, that's a bruise. There's no internal issues with his arm right now. I think he'll be good to go for his next start.
Yeah, tomorrow's going to be Bubba Chandler against Seattle, and then the Reds come into town. The Reds are in last place right now. They don't have Hunter Green. I go into these series, Paul, and I always say, okay, you should, like you play in Colorado, you need to take at least 2 of 3. Well, they lose 2 of 3. I thought the same about this series. I would say in Cincinnati, it's a must. You can't lose 2 of 3 to a team like that.
And again, they have to establish home field advantage. They have not been nearly as good at PNC Park this year as they were last year. They're much better on the road this year so far. You need to establish a home advantage, and I think they can start that tomorrow with a victory and then a good series against the Reds.
And based on what we saw tonight, it looks like Connor Griffin could be here for the weekend. I don't know if, that's just me talking, but he looked fine to go. I don't know how many times he needs to go down there and play in Altoona before they call him up. They need him here, not only for that bat, but his defense is sorely missed.
Yeah, if he's healthy, get him up here. There's no reason to play any more games in Altoona.
Paul, thanks very much. Appreciate it, my man.
My pleasure.
All right, that's going to do it for us. For Paul Alexander, I'm Bob Pompeani. Thanks so much for joining us. Do it again tomorrow night and every night. It's 412-575-2600. That puts you in touch with us right here, KDKA Plus and the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Have a great night.